Silver and gold. Just like Frosty the Snowman, the miner in the glacial area he was living or whatever. Silver and gold, silver and gold. He was right, you know. You look at these prices right now, and you say to yourself, man, I wish I had some extra cash ready to go right now. Now, if they really slam the price, that's when you have to make the credit card or whatever happen and go and get some from where it's at right now. I mean, there's no question that no matter how much you don't think you have cash, if they slam the price, you better go out and get as much as you can as fast as you can. Now, having said that, if I had some additional play cash, you could say right now, I'd already be buying. I'd already be back in the market right now, even though I've met all my goals that I've always set, and as far as how much silver I wanted, I'd absolutely be getting more. So, I'm reading my daily news stuff. When I say news, I'm not talking about the mainstream media. I'm talking about the websites and the sources and things that I read. Get what I like to call real news, or realist news for you. And, reading something, I may have been on Silver Doctors or Zero Hedge, I can't remember. And it reminded me about, the GLD, which is paper gold, and the SLV, which is paper silver. And they did this story a few years back, and they were trying to show, basically it was a media story to show, hey, we've got plenty of gold over here in the vaults in London, don't worry about it. And the bozo that went down there, I was blindfolded and I couldn't see where I was going, and it's really secret. Okay. He actually picks up one of these big gold bars and shows it to the camera. And the moron, unless he did this on purpose, then I'm not going to call him a moron, but I don't think he did it on purpose. Picked it up, shows it to the camera, and lo and behold, you can see the serial number on that gold bar. And that gold bar belonged, I want to say, it belonged to the GLD or whatever source they said it belonged to. It didn't belong to, because with gold, unlike silver, gold bars, especially of that size, not little tiny ones, but have serial numbers stamped on every one of them, which will tell pretty much where it was refined and made, where it was made and everything, forged, I should say. So naturally, some people said, oh, well, let's go look up and online that serial number and see where it belongs, who actually owns it. Oh, it wasn't who they said it belongs to, therefore, they're showing other people's gold as if it's some other source of gold that they're trying to shut us all up on, saying, look, we've had plenty of gold, we told you we have plenty of gold, here it is. Except they showed the serial number, proving themselves that they had to use somebody else's gold to make it look like they had all this gold down there. That's a fact. That happened. So, they were talking about in this article the prospectus of GLD, again, paper gold, and they didn't really talk about the SLV prospectus, but I personally read, and this has been several years ago, and I read it in one of my videos. I don't know what it's titled at this moment in time. It might be titled, SLV prospectus, or just, I would almost say if you wanted to hear me, see what was in it and hear what I said, just search for my name, on YouTube, JSnip4 and SLV together, like JSnip4 space SLV, possibly. I don't know if I would have said SLV prospectus or anything like that, but I read it. And before I did the video, of course I read it, so I knew what the hell I'd be reading, because I didn't want to just read you a bunch of nonsense that didn't, looks legit. Why am I even wasting my time doing a video? So naturally, I'm going to read it first. And as I'm reading it, I'm like, what in the hell is this? How could this even be possible? How is this even a document that's even allowable? How can they sell these things as shares like you're selling shares of a company? And I'm reading this thing, and it says stuff like, you know, we reserve the right to not, first of all, you don't, when you buy these shares, either SLV or GLD, and I from what I read yesterday, they said GLD, there is in the fine print, they say you can actually acquire your metal. So you can essentially ask for delivery, not just the share, you know, your stock certificate or whatever. And they said it's so unbelievably hard and you jump through so many hoops, it is virtually impossible to actually get your gold, should you ever demand delivery. And most places, like, you know, you may have a 401k company that actually can invest in the GLD for you, or SLV. You're going to go through your job, they're going to take it out of your check every day. You're not going to be getting that. You're not going to be demanding delivery. You are just getting that as a stock certificate or an investment. That's all that's going to happen. That's how it's always been, pretty much. So anyways, I'm looking at the SLV prospectus, which is basically their, if you will, their terms and conditions, which also has to be approved by the regulators, such as the CFTC, and I'm not sure fully if it's the CFTC, but for sure the SEC, or Security and Exchange Commission. And they approve. Oh yeah, this sounds good. Approve this one. And in it, it's basically saying, should anything ever happen, we don't have to give you your gold or silver. And furthermore, if we don't like what prices we see, right? This is not word for word, but, you know, in other words, a market crash happens in gold and or silver. And let's just focus on SLV for a second. So silver. SLV is closing its doors. They're going to sell off the remaining assets it has, and they're closing down shop. There's nothing you can do about it and say, hey, hold on, no, I believe the prices are going to skyrocket right after this because we've been waiting for this event to happen for you guys to close down. We know you're doing it on purpose. No, don't do it. I'm going to file a lawsuit. Yeah. The prospectus says they have the right to do it. Their custodian has the right to do certain things. It's unbelievable. And essentially what it says is we can sell off all these assets for pennies on the dollar if we choose, and you in return will get whatever that's left and it's worth. So if they had to close down shop in the SLV and everyone's, you know, God forbid, whatever, let's say the price of silver is $8 or something, and they do this, and essentially they say, okay, we're just closing down the whole thing, we're closing the doors, so we're going to sell off the remaining assets, which means we're going to sell off the remaining physical silver and gold for the GLD to the market, which means the club. And here's your shares of the company are now worth $8 a share. So the whole time you've been paying these people, you know, again, you're buying shares if you've been investing in SLV or GLD, or if it's in your 401k somehow. You're continuously giving them money. Now, I just told you a story yesterday that Bullion Direct was taking people's money, never buying, securing the gold or silver that they said they were doing because they took an order from somebody and should have, of course, done that, and never did it. Just kept the money instead and told the person, yeah, here's your receipt, we've got your gold on hand. And their interpretation of their own terms and conditions, they said in their bankruptcy filing, says that that's actually okay. We didn't actually have to go and buy that asset when that order was placed. We could just basically hold on to the money, and then if the person ever wanted their item, then we would go and buy it and give it to them. That was their interpretation. So I'm going to throw one out there on you. Let's see if you find this hard to believe. Tons of money that have been thrown at the SLV, not contract, stocks or shares of SLV, which act as basically an ounce of silver. You buy one share of SLV, you're buying 1 ounce of silver, basically on a stock certificate. And again, if you don't hold the silver, I'm telling you 100 million times, you don't own it. And I'm going to, again, step out on a limb and say, whatever silver that they have acquired over the years, or in the beginning when they opened up shop, I know darn well, because this is another financial institution, and that automatically means guilty in my mind immediately, because the rest of them are and have been proven to be. So why would this be any different? It's ran by the same club as the rest of them, so therefore they're doing the same practices. And that practice that I'm getting at is what just happened to Bullion Direct. I will sit here and tell you, I will guarantee they've been taking enormous amounts of money from people and not going and buying more silver like they should as their shares increase. I just know it. That's not to say that they don't have any, because like they showed on that video, the guy picking up the bar, essentially they're robbing Peter to pay Paul. So they're taking GLD and SLV to put these fires out on the COMEX or wherever else whenever the mass demand kicks in, like right now. And I will also guarantee that even if SLV and GLD happen to have every ounce of gold and silver that backs up every single paper stock share that they've ever issued, that they are leasing, rehypothecating, the gold and silver to the club so that they can put out those fires, and then when things settle down, the club promises to repay everything we took from you. Except the day is coming that they're not going to be able to repay that gold and silver. SLV is going to have a problem. GLD is going to have a problem. We don't have the physical backing we said we do and are by law are supposed to have. What do? We'll just close up shop. We'll just close up shop. We reserve the right to do it for any reason. It's in our prospectus. Gold and silver could be rising exponentially, and we can close down these vehicles, and there's nothing anyone can do. And then if we close them down, no one's going to ever even try and attempt to demand delivery of any physical gold that we happen to have, because we don't have it. And we'll just say we sold it off to the market, and in reality, all we did was get money from the club in exchange for the gold and silver they really owed us to put back in our coffers that they borrowed, that they don't have. So essentially, maybe SLV could just say, well, we'll take the cash equivalent of the gold and silver instead. Which is fine and dandy for them, but it ain't fine and dandy for you or whoever else has been investing in gold, GLD, and SLV, because that means you're investing, once again, in a piece of paper that has a claim on some gold and silver that's supposed to be in this vault that's not there. And if there's one claim on that same gold, there's multiple claims on that same gold, because that's how it has always been. You look at the futures contracts that have been issued recently, breaking all records, in silver especially. There's never been more paper contracts alive and out there than recently and now. I don't know about today, but right now, very recent history, last few weeks, breaking all records. Now, naturally, you'd say, well, that means they have to have more physical silver in order to issue more of these futures contracts. I mean, right? Yeah, you got to have the product to be able to sell more of it, but hardly anyone ever demands delivery, so they just print paper. They're just printing these contracts to give out to people. And the last time I think I looked, they said it was at least 125 to 1 based off of the numbers we're given. And again, who knows, who do we really trust the numbers? And that's another question. But whatever numbers we are getting show that it's 125 roughly to 1, meaning there's 125 futures contracts, as I said the other day, all representing 5,000 ounces of silver each. And if it's 125 to 1, that means for one pile of 5,000 ounces of real silver, that one contract is supposed to be 1 to 1, right? One contract equals 5,000 ounces. There's 125 total pieces of paper all claiming that one 5,000 ounces is deliverable. Can you imagine that? I need 125 gallons of gas in my big rig here. How much is that? Well, $125 times 3, or diesel, for something a gallon. Here you go, sir. It's a few $100 fuel bill. Start your truck up. The needle doesn't even move. It's on empty still. What happened? Well, we're leveraged here at this gas station, sir. You paid the full price for 125 gallons, but we only have 1 gallon backing it, and there's 125 other trucks here right now, so we got to split that up evenly. Each of you get 1 gallon. Well, hold on. I paid you $100 for 125. And then you talk to the next guy. Well, I also paid you for 125. I got a several $100 fuel bill I just paid you. And I just paid you several $100 fuel bill. What do you mean I'm entitled to 1 ounce or 1 gallon? That's essentially what's happening. Not that they're saying to everybody, oh, well, you're all going to get 1 ounce of the 5,000 or whatever it is, 1/25th of it. No. All I'm saying is that somehow legally they're allowed to sell these products, paper products, at a massive fractional reserve lending. Our banking system uses roughly a 10-to-1. Not even roughly, I think it is 10-to-1. Or is it 9-to-1? So, yeah, I think it's 10-to-1. So, example, again, I can't think, is it 9-to-1 or 10-to-1? I think it's 9-to-1. So, 90%, I go and put on $100,000 in a bank. Deposit, it's my bank account, I've got some money, $100K safely in the bank. The bank can immediately take my $100,000 that I just put in there moments ago and start writing loans up to 90% of what I just put in there. They can take $90,000 of my money and immediately lend it out to people. Now, what banks have also been known to do, because it's still that same ratio applies, is say, well, hold on. Rather than physically take this guy's money, 90,000 out of his 100,000, since we have 100,000, he just put 100,000 in, we'll do kind of the opposite of that. We'll lend out on record keeping books 10 times that value or 9 times that value, and we'll lend out $900,000 because, see, the other example, you were left with 10% of your money. They lent out 90,000, you had 100,000 in there, you're left with 10%. So the bank needs to be left with 10% of its loans. So you just put 100,000 in, well, let's lend out 900,000. The 100,000 that this man put in is our 10% that we have to keep here to be in accordance with law. So that's the other way they do it. So think about 125-to-1 ratio. I just gave you a 9-to-1 ratio in that example. How about 125-to-1? And if silver prices and gold prices are where they are today, and they've had to print even more of these paper contracts, more than they've ever had to print ever in the history of the COMEX. And as you saw, they've been trying desperately to push the price down, and they've pushed it down a little bit. Look at the massive effort. As I've said a long time ago, I haven't said in a while, as things go on, it's going to be harder and harder for them to move the price like they used to. They used to be able to move the price with a little bit of their money. Now it's costing them a lot of their money to move the price, and now it's costing them a whole bunch more. They have to get more of these contracts, which requires more paper money to deal with those contracts. Again, they're just pushing paper back and forth, so for each buyer there has to be a seller, which means money does have to transfer. You would think the silver or gold's transferring, because that's what they're, when you see a contract being sold, well, I'm buying silver, I'm selling silver, someone's buying it. And in reality, no one's buying any physical item, they're just shifting the paper back and forth. When the price moves, keep selling, price goes down, more. Okay, and now I'll start buying. Yep, okay. And then the price starts rising again. Okay, sell it back to me in this hand. Okay, yep, price is where we need it, stop. No intention ever of buying the physical product, the actual silver and gold. So when you see a number like 125-to-1, that should let you know how desperate and how unbelievably incredible this mechanism is, and should also show you that when this mechanism fails, and it will fail, what's the real price of gold and silver going to go to? And my thoughts on that have not changed one bit. They are going to be astronomical. Doesn't mean it'll be at the end of this year, or no idea of the time frame. I know I will certainly be around. It's not going to be many years later. It can't be. They're dealing with the debt problem right now as we speak. As you see, Puerto Rico default on his payment, Greece, it's over. It's game over. And then you're going to start hearing about municipality bankruptcies. In other words, cities, counties, same thing. We've been cooking the books. We've been hiding the same thing that the banks have been hiding. This is a common practice across the board. We all have done it. If Puerto Rico can get 72 or 8 or whatever $1 billion in debt all of a sudden and say we can't make this payment next, how are they able to make the payment all these years? How are they able to keep running as a government all these years? Puerto Rico's like the size of a state, not even a big state. Even though it's its own little country, it's like a state. It's $72 billion in the hole and can't make a debt payment on these bonds. How could that go on for all these years? How about when it was $10 billion in the red? $20 billion in the red? $30 billion? That's a massive amount. How could they just keep continuing? That's because they only had to make payments on the borrowed money. And it took them to $72 billion in fully owed money to say that interest payment is now more than we can sustain. Okay, and how much is your interest payment that you owe every month or whatever? It ain't no $72 billion. It's a tiny, 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 tiny fraction of that. So you can't even make that payment. So in other words, what makes you think you can pay the whole nut, off? You can't. And that's going to be the story of municipalities, governments, countries. It's going to be across the board. That's why the club is going to be resetting everything. They don't have a choice. They understand it. And they also want to reset it and start over so that they can do the same thing again. Once again, why are we printing money with interest attached to every single dollar in the form of a bond that we then sell out on the market, that nobody wants anymore, by the way, to then owe that person or entity interest payments for a certain length of time to pay them back the full amount that they lent us plus the interest? Yet, when we print our money from the Federal Reserve, we are not printing the interest, we are only printing the principal, the amount we originally needed. Oh, you need $10 billion? Yep. I need $10 billion in bonds to be issued by the Treasury. Okay, thank you. Let's put that on the market. We've sold them all. Let's just assume, right? The China and the rest of them decided to start buying them again, and we sold them all. But they didn't just give you $10 billion to give you them $10 billion back. They want that $10 billion back plus interest. The interest is never created. So what can possibly happen? This is simple math. This is basic math. If a dollar, and I'm going to give you a low fee. For every dollar that's printed, we'll charge 1% interest. $1.01 has to be created to pay it back. But I've only printed $1 to start with. One single dollar. How in the hell is there another dollar plus 1 cent interest to pay that $1 when I've only printed one to start with? Got to print another one. But hold on, if you print another one, that's only $1 you're printing. You need $1.01. So really you need to print $1 and some change, right? So you have to print more money to pay for the original money, which is basically chasing. You're always chasing the original principal. And not just chasing it with the same amount, but the interest amount. Therefore, you can never, ever, 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 ever get out of debt. How can any country or entity ever get out of debt when printing money means we are printing bonds, and then those bonds we have to make payments to somebody? The club, ultimately, is who owns all these bonds. A lot of them. It can't be paid off. So what in the hell kind of system, right? I mentioned this a long time ago. I said, you look at the world over the last, again, just 100 years. It's a tiny amount of time. Maybe even 150 years, just to really go back and say, how are we doing things then? And then look at today as I do this video with this suction cup attached to my own personal vehicle that I drive by myself It's got electronics. I can turn this thing on called a radio. It picks up a signal that I can't even see. It just works. I press this little pedal on the right and my car goes faster. This is incredible technology. We've advanced unbelievably. I've got a cell phone that's a mini computer that I take with me anywhere, and I can get on this thing called the internet, and I can even videoing me, and oh my God, I can take... Are we not technologically advanced? Did we not take a massive leap forward? The answer is a resounding yes. You can't say no. You can't. But the same monetary and economic system, mostly monetary, is still in place, not because it shouldn't have evolved or we, as people, tried to let it evolve into something better. It has had a stranglehold on it by the same rich dynasty families from hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. Maybe we may even have to say thousands, but we can't go back that far. We don't know. And it's their system. And as long as that system's in place, they retain control, power, and money. Richest people ever. So everything else has been allowed to increase exponentially, technologically. It's awesome. Air conditioning in our own house, and even in this car example I gave you. Man, we are awesome. But you're going to use an ancient, prehistoric form of economics and monetary system. That's what you're going to use, and then we're going to keep dealing with that and reset and wreck people's lives, and we'll do it again. Same things apply. We'll start over, and then a new dollar will come out to replace the old dollar. And do you realize President Abraham Lincoln won the war by printing the greenback, as they named it, which was a dollar that had no interest attached. They just printed it from the government and told the people this is going to replace gold right now, maybe just temporarily, because we don't have enough gold to pay our troops, neither does the South, but we don't want to be in the same situation as them, and people don't work for free, including soldiers, so we need to print money to pay these people, and the North all decided we accept that. And they all agreed it was money, and it worked. They won the war. Everything was paid for by these greenbacks, and nobody was owed money. The government just printed it and said, here, we're paying for all these government services. Interest, clear, no bonds, no owing, nothing, just done. It worked so well, he realized after the war, this should replace the ancient system we've been using. This works great. Government can just pay itself what it needs to function. We don't have to collect taxes, income tax, and local tax, or property. None of it. We just pay the government pays for its own services. Perfect. Now I had to blow his head off by some crazy weird guy. There's always a crazy weird guy that tries to kill one of our presidents whenever that president goes against the banking cabal. Every time. Yes, including John F. Kennedy. So, you can see this ancient system isn't around because it's the only thing that we've decided over thousands of years that really truly works. It has never worked. But they continue to buy out politicians, pay off the right people, threaten the right people to just keep their system going. Don't let the people ever change this. Because if it ever changes, the club is no longer the club. They're no longer at the top. So all I can tell you is brace for what's coming financially. And I'm telling you, precious metals, there are going to be so many people. I can't wait when the explosion in precious metal prices occurs to turn on the news and hear absolutely zip from the same pundits who are out there right now blasting precious metals as a terrible investment, and look at the price, and I've told you that they're just doing their job. And when that day comes and precious metals prices spike, you're going to hear this from those same pundits. Zip. You're going to have to catch those people out on the street to bring it up to them. Hey, I thought, man, you said several times recently about these precious metals and the price was... But what happened, man? The price is skyrocketing also. What happened? What do you think? Then again, how often do you see one of these pundits caught out walking on the street somewhere and someone confronting them and asking them a question and then posting it online for all of us to see? Rare to ever does that happen. Nor does it really matter. What matters is what we all know to be the truth. And the fact that they're trying so hard right now to poo-poo gold and silver lets you know we were right. This is their counter mechanism, one of them, that they're using. Get people away from that. Don't talk about the record sales. The U.S. Mint don't even record Friday's Silver Eagle sales that were blowing stuff out of the water, because had you, it would have been the highest sales month of 2015. And we don't want to have to report that, so let's just not even count Friday. Let's just leave it as Thursday as the last count of the month of July. Don't even count Friday. That can only come from the Treasury Secretary. And I guarantee you that's who gave the order not to include the final sales tally. So now you have the Treasury complicit in covering up the truth and what's really happening in the precious metals market. If prices were being destroyed and there's no one wanting to buy the stuff, it's just old relic, would they have to do that? Absolutely not. Because they wouldn't have a record-breaking of 2015 sales month, because no one would be buying it. And you wouldn't have pundits on TV, the mainstream TV, telling you to stay away from it, it's bad, we told you the price is bad, it's terrible, yada, 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 yada. Jay Snip ain't buying it, and you shouldn't buy it either. Take care.